Let's go back to Harry Truman, and we have this chart here of all the presidents and how many people they've pardoned. And you can see something at the bottom there, a lot of green real estate on Joe Biden's name.
Wow.
You have about 8,064 pardons from Joe Biden in one term. If George Bush had 200 pardons in 2 terms, Barack Obama, 1,927 pardons in 2 terms. So Biden was very busy pardoning people. And some of the people obviously pardoned his son Hunter, but then he went on the morning of the inauguration to pardon his siblings and their spouses on the way out of the White House. We have that article. But then for our audience and for the world audience, we have the main figure in the ongoing global scientific crime scene that is the COVID pandemic, Anthony Fauci. And this is a headline here. Biden preemptively pardons Anthony Fauci, Mark Milley, and the January 6th committee members. So pardons usually are for people that have committed a crime.
Yeah.
Maybe they showed great behavior. So the preemptive pardon is very rare. I mean, Jimmy Carter preemptively pardoned people who did not take part in the Vietnam draft. That was mandatory. Things like that we've seen throughout history. It has happened, but it's very rare. So let's look at the pardon here from Biden to Fauci. This is a full and unconditional pardon. It says for any offense against the United States, which he may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through the date of this pardon arising from or in any manner related to the service's director of NIAID, as a member of the White House Corona Task Force, or the White House COVID-19 response team as the chief medical advisor to the president. So this shows shocking contempt for the public, rule of law, justice. And I think Biden, by doing this, has eroded public trust in public health more than any president in the history of this country, because this is just, again, it's an ongoing investigation. And I think one of the people who really puts it so plainly and so succinctly is comedian, actor, and podcaster Andrew Schultz. He was on a podcast, and when he heard about this, he kind of just erupted, and it sounded like this.
But Fauci took the pardon. Fauci could say, I don't want the pardon. I don't think I did anything wrong. Mm-hmm. But he took the pardon.
I don't blame anybody for taking a pardon.
I do, because now you're guilty. Because there are a lot of people that were on the January 6th committee that were offered a pardon, and they said no. They're like, I did my job. I was supposed to investigate this. I did what I was supposed to do. I don't want the pardon.
If you're Fauci, you're not taking a pardon?
What's in my arm, yo?
What's in your arm, not mine?
That's what I'm saying. What's in my arm, yo? Why are you taking a pardon? What's in my arm, yo?
Okay.
What's in my arm?
I'm taking that part. I don't give a
If I put some in my arm, you're not allowed to get pardoned. You told me I need to put some in my arm. Now you can't go get pardoned. You gotta hold the weight of that decision. That's your job. What's in my arm, yo?
I mean,
what's about to come out?
You ain't wrong. Like it looks a suspect. It definitely looks crazy suspect.
I mean, it's such a good point, right? Like, why would a doctor that ran, our health decisions during pandemic need to be pardoned ahead of time? Obviously, even that conversation to go on, well, maybe it was the gain of function, things that, Rand Paul had him on the ropes. Probably they sensed was going in for the kill any day now. Of course, I've been saying, and maybe I made the mistake of being so open about the fact that I wanted to see him carted off to jail in handcuffs. My understanding is, though, that it is a federal pardon, that the states will still have rights and an ability to maybe indict on some level. So it'll be interesting to see if any of the states go that direction. But I think it's a perfectly valid point. If you haven't broken the law, why are you worried? Why would you need a pardon? If you feel good about what you've done, don't you think the court systems in America work? I mean, the whole thing is, the whole idea of a preemptive pardon really undermines faith in the system. The president doesn't trust the judicial system that they've used so powerfully and really weaponized themselves over the last 4 years. I think that's clear to anybody. It's just, it's a double standard. And I do think we should be worried. I think anyone that got injected or, had someone die because they couldn't get ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, and then the salesperson for all of those things, including the 6-foot social distancing, which he said just sort of appeared, well, we'll have to see what happens. But it's unfortunate. It also, I think, though, does lay the onus of guilt upon him. So we'll see how that plays out, certainly in our history books.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he was scot-free and this was a conspiracy. We had in 2022, this is Rand Paul. Fauci referred to Justice Department for criminal investigation for allegedly lying under oath to Congress. And even Rand
Mm-hmm.
Paul took to X after he heard about this pardon. He said, if there was ever any doubt as to who bears responsibility for the COVID pandemic, Biden's pardon of Fauci forever seals the deal. As chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, I will not rest until the entire truth of the cover-up is exposed. Fauci's pardon will only serve as an accelerant to pierce the veil of deception. Ignominious Anthony Fauci will go down in history as the first government scientist to be preemptively pardoned for a crime. And as you rightly mentioned, in 2014, because that's when this starts, the pardon starts in 2014, we know that President Obama asked for a halt to gain-of-function research. The headline says U.S. halts funding for new risky virus studies that like SARS, MERS, flu. There's one study that snuck through, though, and this was Ralph Barrick, University of North Carolina, funded by NIAID's Anthony Fauci. This was the SARS-like cluster of circulating bat coronaviruses shows potential for human emergence, where they were souping up coronaviruses to see if they can better infect people. And Fauci paid for that. And we know now in his emails, he was running around trying to cover that up. Then he covered up the origin story. Then he was the promoter of the vaccine. As you said, social distancing. He was the main
Yeah.
person on that, possibly lying in congressional hearings. This guy has fingerprints everywhere that need to be investigated. So it's really interesting that, I mean, this sends a message, a bad message to public health officials that they can be reckless with their recommendations and get away with it. So one of the other things that Biden did right before he left was he gave a gift to Moderna of $590 million through HHS by providing them the money to accelerate pandemic influenza mRNA-based vaccine development. These are for avian flu viruses with pandemic potential. So this is another thing that Biden is just pouring money. A lot of people thought this was Trump's decision, but this was Biden. So these were these kind of gifts as he's out the door and parting. But now we move to Trump. He takes office.